hear the words bacteria or microbes, we think of germs and sickness, but many are actually beneficial and essential for everyday life, helping us and the environment. Your soil, for example, needs a good range and balance of microbes in order to provide the nutrients needed to grow healthy fauna, like that around me. In particular, the bacteria and fungi found in the environment clean up polluted soils and are needed for the functioning of the carbon and nitrogen cycle.
Nitrogen is an important building block of all DNA, proteins and chloroplasts, all essential parts of plant cells. Without these, new plant cells can't grow or maintain their health. Plant cells need nitrogen to produce their own energy needed for growth, helping us produce beautiful fruits and vegetables. The nitrogen cycle has 5 main steps: fixation, ammonification, nitrification, denitrification and assimilation.
Nitrogen fixation converts nitrogen gas in the atmosphere to ammonium in the soil or plant roots. This is done by, that's right, bacteria, which have the enzyme mononitrogenase. There's free-living bacteria, for example Azotobacter, or symbiotic bacteria, some of which live within the plant roots. Rhizobium, in particular, usually lives in the root nodules of legume plants and forms a mutualistic association. Here, the symbiotic bacteria convert atmospheric nitrogen to ammonia and directly provides it to the plant, a huge shortcut in this system. Free-living bacteria produce ammonium, which is deposited into the soil for the latest step of nitrification to utilise. The symbiotic relationship with legume plants is a good reason to take advantage of companion planting, a technique we will cover later on. Nitrification. This is a process where bacteria and fungi, for example actinobacteria, break down organic nitrogen. This comes from the proteins and amino acids in dead plant and animal matter and produces ammonium, which is then retained in the soil. Adding fertilizer to our yards gives the microbes more organic nitrogen to convert to ammonium, which is then used in nitrification as well. Actinobacteria is responsible for the characteristic earthy aroma associated with healthy soil. It requires aerated soil and a pH of between 6 and 7.5. This process uses oxygen to convert the ammonium produced in the last 2 steps to nitrite and then nitrate. Ammonia oxidizing bacteria, AOBs, including Nitrosomus, Nitrobacter species, and ammonia oxidizing archaea, carry out this process to produce energy for themselves with nitrite and nitrate as helpful byproducts. Nitrification is a good reason to aerate our soils, as this greatly assists the process. Nitrite and nitrate are both very soluble, so aren't stored in the soil easily. This means the process needs to occur frequently if our plants are going to have access to the nutrients they need. Now this is a problem step for us in the cycle. Here, nitrate is converted back to nitrogen gas when the soil is waterlogged or not aerated. The bacteria Pseudomonas and Clostridium use nitrate as a source of energy, but by doing so, there is less available for the plants to use. Ideally, we'll get to assimilation. This is where we hope the past steps will lead us to. It's also the simplest step. Here, plants absorb the available nitrogen ions through their roots as much as they need. A lot about the nitrogen cycle, but what about the carbon cycle? See, the carbon that's fixed by plants is transferred to the soil via dead plant matter, including dead roots, leaves, and fruiting bodies, like the apples that drop and never get eaten. This dead organic matter creates a substrate called humus, which decomposes and respires back to the atmosphere as carbon dioxide or methane, depending on the availability of the oxygen in the soil. This is important because all organic life, bacteria and other microbes included, need carbon in order to basically start their life cycle.
The carbon cycle is the physical cycle of carbon through the Earth's biosphere, geosphere, hydrosphere and atmosphere that includes such processes as photosynthesis, decomposition, respiration and carbonification. Basically, it helps to make soil better.
So we've talked a lot about the bacteria that can live in the soil. What about the fungi? Because some of this can live symbiotically with plants, creating a relationship that is beneficial to both. These are known as microzoae. Plant root hairs are invaded by the mycelia of the microzoa, which lives partially in the soil and partly in the root. The microzoa obtains the carbohydrates that it requires from the root in return providing the plant with nutrients, including nitrogen and moisture. Later, the plant roots will also absorb the mycelium into its own tissues. Mycorrhizal fungus hyphae extend from the surface area of the root. What we use in farming today stems from methods used for centuries. Companion planting, for example, has been used extensively. Farmers may grow legumes between main farming seasons and then plough them back into the soil. This is due to the large amounts of nitrogen that is able to be taken up by legume plants due to the symbiotic relationship with bacteria that we mentioned earlier. Ploughing the plants releases the dense nitrogen stores in the stems and leaves of these plants back into the soil, creating rich nitrogen deposits. It's only recently, though, that scientific advances can precisely determine how the nitrogen and carbon cycles function and what microbes and chemical compounds are involved in each vital step. So we might have used these techniques for ages, but had no idea why they actually worked. Most microbes, bacteria and fungi included, rather inhabit rich soil over poor. We conducted our own experiment on 2 soil samples, one rich in nutrients and the other one poor in nutrients. The rich soil was found to have 9.2 million aerobes, 310,000 anaerobes, and 8 million actinomyces colony forming units per gram. Poor soil, though, had only 460,000 aerobes, 91,000 anaerobes, and 210,000 actinomyces colony forming units. Clearly, the quality of the soil is a huge influence on how many different microbes grow. Soil, like that in your town of Toorak, is exceptionally old, and as such has been sapped of many of its nutrients. Because of this, you, as gardening enthusiasts, must take extra care in fertilising and aerating your soil, so that the helpful little microbes, and in turn plants, are able to flourish.